so much fun. It's so cool. Hey guys, it's Kobi McCoull and welcome back to another episode of Tuesday Tunes. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I really hope you enjoy the content. I've been pretty short on time recently because I've been working on a mysterious project that I am really excited to share with you guys, and I'm going to show you a tiny little bit of that just now. And now we're just doing the edge triangle bits. Just need to fill those top bits in. We threw in some insulation yesterday and it sounds really good actually. Next bit, the same.
Cut one of these guys at the same angle, and that keeps that. I either just hold it up, and we can straight it, build it up and straight it, cut it off and
It may be kind of obvious, but see if you can figure out what it's going to be. So because I've been doing that over the last week or two, and I've still got my builder's belt on, I actually think I could make some interesting Foley recordings with these screws and a lot of the stuff around the build site. So I might do that at some point. Ready for some ASMR with Kobi. Anyway, that's besides the point. Today, I'd like to show you guys a dark hip-hop trap beat that I've been working on and give you a couple of really significant tips that I've discovered whilst making this beat, and a couple of other things that I just do regularly that really take the track to that next level without making it any more complicated. So let's just dive straight into the breakdown. As ever with these types of beat, tasteful simplicity is king. So the first thing I started with was the drum beat. And I went with a tempo of 101 because if you want something to be dark and sinister and have a heavier energy, you want to make it slightly slower. It doesn't matter if it's minor or major, when you slow things down a lot, they just feel more somber and mellow. I don't know whether that's the right word, but kind of more sad or more melancholy. Whereas when you speed it up, major or minor chords, it's going to feel more uplifting and energetic. So the drums, I just wanted to keep them super simple, but they're bold and strong sounds. And then I just have a strong snare roll here. And the whole thing is just designed to throw you really aggressively through the beat. And that pairs really nicely with a really strong classic Reese sub bass. Now the other things that I added in, I just wanted some really nice ambient but quite dark minor sounds. So initially I went for this keys sound. If I take my processing off it, it's just a patch in Omnisphere that I found and then tweaked so that it was at the tone that I wanted, where you could pick out really subtle changes in the chord structure, but it wasn't melodic as such. Then just added an imager to spread it out, and an OTT being pretty strong to bring out some graininess in it. Then sent it to some reverbs to give it even more spaciousness, and then ducked it using the kick and the snare as a sidechain. So the snare and kick sidechain is actually pretty aggressive because I almost wanted it to create a pulsing feeling, almost as if someone who was playing the keys is intentionally making the note swell at that point. I really enjoyed being bold with the sidechain like that. It doesn't always have to be subtle, sometimes more is more. Then to pair with it really nicely, I created a melodic element with a soft lead that I made in Serum, and originally it was quite forward and there were a lot of high-end frequencies, but by washing it out in a reverb and taking away most of the dry signal, it sends it away back in the instrumental so that it doesn't take up too much space where you would want a vocal. So this is the reverb here, and as you can see I've pulled down a lot of the dry signal so that it's mostly wet signal that's coming through. So if I play it like this, It's a really cool sound, but it's quite dominant. I didn't want it to be taking up that space because that's where the vocal was going to reside. So by pulling down the dry signal and increasing the wet signal with the reverb, you just send it much further back in the track and it occupies a much nicer space, leaving room for the vocal. And the only other thing that I added were some ambient sounds, so some sort of echoey cave drops and a rain lake sound effect. I love making stuff that has this kind of energy in it, this kind of dark, sinister, raw energy, and it's really simple as well. That's what's so cool about it. Now, notice it was really tempting to add in more notes because there's no vocal there yet. That is one of the main temptations that can be the downfall of your instrumental, is that you make it too busy to try and replace a vocal that's supposed to go in, when really you want there to be space. Another technique that I discovered after having the vocal in place that helps even more adding space is using a gross beat to half the timing of the instruments. So I've got them separated out, and in here with this bus, it's an instrument control bus, so I can control the volume. I can also EQ both the instruments and the instrument effects together if I want to. But I've also added in this gross beat that I've put this time effect on. In FL Studio, you can automate this up and down. So when it's down, the instruments are up the octave. But then when I automate it up, it puts them down the octave. It makes it even more dark and more sinister. But what's also really cool about that is it makes it even more spacious for the vocal. Theoretically speaking, if I'm right, the frequencies will be further down. So here's a side-by-side comparison. This is before the gross beat effect. This is after the gross beat effect. So you've got the gross beat putting it down the octave, but it's still playing at the same tempo. It's so cool, and it completely changes the vibe of the song whilst remaining with the same chord progression, but it also means that you can blend the two together. You're not just throwing it down an octave in the MIDI. So if you have this halfway, you have a mix of both. And then you're all the way back up to the top with just the higher frequencies. And so when you put that into the final song, you can help that dictate or command the different sections that you're in, whether that's a verse, a chorus, a bridge. And you haven't really changed anything. You're still using exactly the same fundamental building blocks that you had. You're just tweaking the place that they occupy and the energy that they give to the song. And the effect that that has with the vocal, which I'll show you in a second, is so good as well. It's amazing how much you can emphasize the vocal just by turning this up and down. Wow. When it's up the octave, it's higher energy. And then when you take it down, it feels more intimate and it's darker with slightly lower energy. Yeah. Hey. It's amazing the difference that makes. And then if you wanted to rise back up, all all the while still having loads of space to do whatever you want with the vocal on top of it. Because although there's melodic elements in there that your brain gets drawn to every now and again, it's still a simple melody overall. I'm probably rabbiting on way too much about that, but I just love what that does to the beat. Like I say, simple but tasteful. Then I've also been playing around with the way that I record vocals and how I come up with different melody ideas. So I've actually just been sitting in front of the mic and just singing whatever the hell comes to my mind, just blaring it into the microphone, and then just slapping on the usual processing that I have. And then I'll just export whatever I record and then just chop it up and move it into different places and just play around with it. I'm not singing words, I'm just singing melodies. I've got a free auto-tuning plugin that I'll put in the description, which is really handy. You don't have to spend so much on the full version of Autotune, but just for the simplest side of actually coming up with ideas and not having to spend ages trying to sing them really well, it's really handy. Obviously, when it comes to doing final vocals, you want to spend the time actually singing them really well and not relying on the Autotune, but for coming up with ideas, it's so handy. So you can see all the different ideas that I've got along here, but actually this was all just one long vocal that I just sang loads of random stuff into it. So I'll just give you a demo of what I mean. So what's really cool about using that effect is you can just get more out of what's already there, and you can play around with stuff that you just wouldn't have come up with before because you've got some paint squeezed out of the bottle to kind of play around with. And if you put yourself in too many boxes or try and overcomplicate things too much, you end up doing more work than I think you have to come up with something that's actually really good. What it also then allows you to do is test sending things to different places, so you can come up with reverse sounds just from those random vocals, because reverse sounds don't have to come from really well sung vocals, just so long as they're in the right key, it's fine. And then ad-libs as well, like I could just throw stuff underneath it that goes in the background. And then reverse sounds like this, which when you put it with the vocals, it's almost like it demonstrates well to you where the track could go and gives you a better scope for the possibilities that you can explore with it. And then when you put that all together, it's so much fun, it's so cool. And anyway, yeah, that was that. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video and maybe you learned something new from the tips, which would be awesome. If you have any other questions, please do comment them down below or send me a message on my Instagram. Things have been, like I say, pretty tough to balance around the build that we're doing outside, and I think I would definitely do more with this song, but not until I finish that little project out there. So I really look forward to sharing the next video with you guys, but until then, bye.